What's up, everybody? I'm Ryan Thomas. Thank you for joining me. Getting off to an early start. 1:30-ish, 1:35-ish. Was supposed to start at 2, but I'm ready. I'm ready to go, raring to go for my second edition of the 32 Picks in 32 Days. Finished episode 1 with the Cleveland Browns. If you have not checked that out, it's Cleveland Browns, What Should They Do? When really it was Cleveland Browns, 32 Picks, 32 Days. First overall on the clock will be Cleveland. Then you'll have the San Francisco 49ers, and that will be the subject matter for today's show. The San Francisco 49ers hold the second overall pick in the 2017 NFL Draft, which is April 27th. And I've been doing a lot of work on it, reading a lot about the prospects, watching a lot of tape on the prospects, and this 32 teams in 32 days segment, I should say, is one that I'm excited to do because it gives me a chance to learn about every single team. It gives me a chance to find out what is best for every single team inside the National Football League. And I learned a lot about the Browns. I've done a lot of research, obviously, now on the 49ers, and it's been very fun. So I'm very excited to continue it and to finish it. And as I finish each team, it's going to give me a full first-round mock draft as to what I think could happen in the first round of this year's NFL Draft. So, with that being said, it is time to get off to a start and talk about the San Francisco 49ers. A lot has changed in San Fran. They went from Harbaugh to Tomsula to Chip Kelly. Now they have hired a new head coach, Kyle Shanahan. And after that, they brought in a GM, former All-Pro safety, John Lynch. And it made big headlines in terms of John Lynch does not have any NFL experience as an NFL GM. He's never been a part of an NFL executive team. And a lot of critics are already around saying that, John Lynch shouldn't have this job, that it's a opportunity for someone else that deserves it, that's worked their way up the NFL executive ranks. I'm going to take advice from an all-pro safety, one of the most instinctive positions in the game today and of yesteryear, from a guy that will be on Hall of Fame ballots, excuse me, a guy that will be on Hall of Fame ballots for many years to come until he reaches Canton, Ohio, and that is John Lynch. I like the hire. I think it's an interesting hire. I like John Lynch as a man. Obviously, I think he has an interesting take on football, and I think he's going to apply that to the San Francisco 49ers. A lot of work needs to be done in San Fran quickly in order for them to become a team of substance quickly. If they, take their time and build, they could be really good for the long haul. But if the goal is to make the playoffs, they definitely, if the goal is to make the playoffs for this upcoming season, they definitely have to do so, work very quickly, get as many impactful players in this draft as they possibly can. I wanted to read a article that I wrote for myfantasysportstalk.com in June of last year. I talked about the San Francisco 49ers. From Walsh to Chip, how did San Francisco get here? I profiled how the franchise was once a staple of the NFL. You had Bill Walsh, Jerry Rice, Joe Montana, Steve Young, Roger Craig, Dwight Clark, Ronnie Lott, and many more. The list could really go on and on. But those days are long gone. Much like the days of the Buffalo Bills, those days are long gone. You can cling to those memories, but that's the past. The post-Bill Walsh era has consisted of George Seifert, Steve Mariucci, Dennis Erickson, Mike Nolan, Mike Singletary, Jim Tomsula, Jim Harbaugh, and Jim Tomsula again. And last but not least, their last head coach, Chip Kelly. Seifert went 98-30. They won a Super Bowl with Seifert. Mariucci went 57-39. Erickson went 9-23. Nolan went 18-37. Singletary went 18-22. Harbaugh went 44-19. And Tomsula went 6-11, 1-0 on an interim basis in 2010. So you get the point. Since the Walsh-Seifert days, the Niners have been an inconsistent shell with coaches in and out of the door. Giovanni Carmazzi is a name that comes to mind that they took in the second round or third round over a guy named Tom Brady from Michigan. You could honestly say as well that if the 49ers won that Super Bowl against the Baltimore Ravens, you would have a completely different story. Harbaugh would probably still be there, but that's not the case. He kind of drove himself out of town. The hiring of Chip Kelly was one of the worst hires in recent memory for a team to hire a new head coach. He destroyed the Philadelphia Eagles on an internal and external level. Internally in the locker room, they were destroyed. There were accusations of racism. Externally out on the field, they were destroyed as well, using players in the wrong form and fashion, like a DeMarco Murray. And he goes from having over 1,800 yards to 700 the next year. I doubted his scouting ability. I thought the move was going to be a terrible move for the San Francisco 49ers. You had a guy like Tom Coughlin on the market to bring in, and they chose not to. So, I said in the closing statement, DeMarco Murray is a Titan. I expect him to re-energize his career and should be a key figure in helping the Titans get back to respectability, which he was. Back to those 49ers, I expect nothing but turmoil, confusion, and losing for a team that is one of the most prestigious in the National Football League. CK7 might show us some flashes of his old self in Chip's offense, but they will be few and far between, and I expect him to be playing for another team next season. In a situation much like RG3's current situation in Cleveland, a second chance, low-risk, high-reward contract. 49ers fans who believe the 2016 will be a gold mine, I'm sorry, but it will be closer to a landmine. Let the turmoil begin. I hate to toot my own horn. I really do. Actually, I don't, but I kind of do. I don't want to be that guy, but I was 100% on the money with this. Chip Kelly was a disaster. Their offense looked horrible. Their defense looked even worse. They're one of the worst teams in the NFL outside of Cleveland. And I looked at Cleveland's schedule when I looked at their teams. When I looked at profiled their team, they lost 6 games by less than 7 points. That means that they're better than what their record showed at 1-15. So a case could be made that the San Francisco 49ers were the worst team in the National Football League last year. They obviously were one of the bottom 2. So where do they go from here? They fire Chip Kelly. They bring in Kyle Shanahan. Kyle Shanahan did some remarkable things with that Atlanta Falcons offense with Matt Ryan and Julio Jones. But really, what went unnoticed to me about the offense was Devontae Freeman and Tevin Coleman. That duo of running backs provided Atlanta with the running game that they needed to be the shoulder for Matt Ryan to lean on. Rather than putting all the pressure on Matt Ryan to succeed, it gave him a safety valve in Freeman and Tevin Coleman. So Shanahan has coached a variety of different quarterbacks. Matt Ryan, RG3, Johnny Manziel, 3 completely different quarterbacks. You could say that, Manziel and RG3 have similarities in terms of mobility, but their playing style is very different. So that begs the question, what will they do at quarterback? Colin Kaepernick is not getting his option. They're not accepting his option. There's been rumors of Matt Schaub possibly being the guy. There's been rumors of Jay Cutler possibly being the guy. And rather at second overall, in my mock draft so far, I have Myles Jarrett going first overall. Rather than them taking a second overall pick as the future of their franchise on a terrible team where that player will only fail in his rookie season, nothing more, nothing less, you'd be better off going the veteran route, letting that vet learn and preach the system to a younger guy. Maybe they go in both routes. Maybe they get the veteran and the rookie quarterback from North Carolina, Mitch Trubisky. I don't necessarily see that. I think they need to beef up this defense. John Lynch is a defensive guy, obviously being an all-pro safety. They do need a bit of an identity at the quarterback position, but they could still find that identity in the second or third rounds. rather than using a second overall pick on a quarterback that will only fail in his rookie year if he plays, rather than succeed. So, that being said, I have the San Francisco 49ers going after, at second overall, Jonathan Allen from the University of Alabama. Allen, in a crop of well-versed prospects in terms of pass rushers, is one of the best in this draft. I really like Solomon Thomas. I really like Myles Jarrett, but he was a great player at Alabama, Jonathan Allen. Played 13 games as a true freshman at Alabama in 2013, had 16 tackles. Sophomore in 2014, he played in all 14 games, made 12 starts. First team All-SEC, 33 tackles as a sophomore, 5.5 sacks. And as a junior, he started all 14 games and was a part of the national championship team in 2015. In terms of sacks, he had 5, 12, and 10. Tackles for loss, 11, 14, and 16. Tackles, 32, 36, 69. His numbers went up as he continued to play the 4 years. Played 4 years at Alabama. Started in spades as a freshman, 7 games, and then 14, 14, and 15. So, obviously this guy is a talented player. He's from the University of Alabama, which has produced great crop of, players the last few years, obviously. And I really think that is what they need. By going the quarterback route with the Trubisky and putting the onus all on him, the only way that would work is if they go Trubisky and a veteran like a Cutler, like a Schaub. And I don't necessarily think that they would want to do that. I think that they would rather pass on Trubisky, bring in a veteran, get as much as you can out of a guy like Matt Schaub and Jay Cutler, and try to be competitive for this upcoming season. I don't know if them having a rookie quarterback would make them the most competitive team. I think every quarterback in this year's draft, and I'll say this multiple times, every quarterback in this year's draft needs a year or two to develop. They're not Dak. They're not Carson. Jared Goff was unimpressive, but he was a guy that needed a year or two to develop. I stated that last year. So, that being said, I think Jonathan Allen is the perfect pick for the San Francisco 49ers. I think that defensively they will be much better with a guy like Jonathan Allen. John Lynch is a defensive mind, defensive-geared coach, and Allen would really be a cog in that defensive line for the long haul, for the long term for the team. They got DeForest Buckner last year. He was decent last year. Adding to his strength on the defensive line, adding to a strength on your team is not necessarily a bad thing. Making one part of your team the most dominant part of your team is never a bad thing, and I think that would be the case for sure if they were to get a guy like Jonathan Allen. Is Kyle Shanahan responsible for the Falcons' loss? Yes, I would put much of the blame on him for the Falcons' Super Bowl loss, but this is his opportunity now to put that behind him. Put himself in the head coaching position in San Francisco. He got himself that job before the Super Bowl was even played, and really seize the moment. This is his chance to be his own man, get out of the shadow of his dad, and put his best foot forward with a GM that it appears to be that they have a good working relationship, and that is what a team needs. It needs the good working relationship between the GM and the head coach in order to attain success. So, might it take a little while for San Francisco to become competitive again? Yes, but I would say Jonathan Allen would be a heck of a good start. So, that was my second edition of 32 teams, 32 picks in 32 days, and 32 picks in 32 days, and I have Jonathan Allen going second overall to the San Francisco 49ers. Mitch Trubisky is also a possibility, but if it were me, if I was in the seat, I'd select Jonathan Allen. I'm Ryan Thomas. That was the Thomas Take, 32 picks in 32 days. Thank you all for tuning in. Stay tuned tomorrow as I'm going to talk about what the team with the third overall pick should do, the Chicago Bears. What direction should Da Bears